If this book found you, it's for a reason. A field manual for the soul that just woke up. A note before you begin. This book was written for one specific reader. Her face is unknown to me. Her name I will never learn. Her circumstances are particular to her and unrepeatable in any other life. And yet, of the 8 billion people alive on this planet, this exact configuration of pages, in this exact order, was prepared for her. You are her. I will not pretend to know how this book reached your hands. The mechanisms by which the right material finds the right reader are, on inspection, far stranger than the publishing industry pretends. Books that should have made the bestseller list disappear into obscurity. Books that no one with any business sense would have predicted to thrive end up sitting on the bedside tables of the very people who needed them. The visible market is a small and crude approximation of a deeper sorting that happens quietly in the background. The deeper sorting brought you here. What I will tell you is that I have written this book in a particular way for a particular reason. I have not tried to be original at every sentence. The truths in these pages are old. Many of them are far older than the names attached to them. Tesla, Jung, Neville Goddard, Lao Tzu, Einstein, the unknown initiates of the Hermetic tradition. These are vehicles that the underlying truth used to enter the historical record. The truth itself precedes them and will outlast them. I have tried in each chapter to point past the named teacher toward the truth they were pointing at. Where I have used their formulations, it is because their formulations were better than any I could improvise. Where I have used my own, it is because the situation called for a phrasing more suited to a reader sitting on a Tuesday in the year 2026, not a Greek initiate of the 2nd century or a Swiss psychiatrist of the 1920s. I've tried to write at the level of practice. The temptation in any book on these topics is to write at the level of philosophy and let the reader, on their own time, figure out how to apply it. This is a cowardice I have tried to avoid. Where I could give you something to do with your hands, this week, this evening, I have given it. Where I could not, I have at least tried not to leave you in a fog of edifying generalities. The fog is comforting. The fog is also useless. It will not change your life. The practices applied will. I have not tried to be comforting at every turn. Some chapters will land hard. The chapter on the shadow, in particular, is going to ask you to look at parts of yourself you have been avoiding. The chapter on Dharma is going to ask you to consider the possibility that you have been spending years on the wrong project. The chapter on the Threshold Guardian is going to put a name on the self-sabotage that has, until now, been invisible to you. None of this is gentle. All of it is necessary. If you are looking for a book that will tell you that you are perfect just as you are and require no further work, you have not found it. There are, as I said in the introduction, plenty of those books, and they are doing their job. This book has a different job. This book is here to interrupt the comfortable trajectory of your old life and offer you, with as much accuracy as I could manage, the working manual for the new one. Whether you accept the offer is not, in the end, my decision. It is yours. Read slowly. Read once, and then read again 6 months later, when life has shown you what you were not yet ready to see on the first reading. Underline the sentence that grabs you by the throat. Argue with the chapters that frustrate you, and notice, when the dust settles, which of those chapters were frustrating because they were touching something true. I have done my part. The book is finished, and now it is yours. The work is beginning. Walk well. Introduction. The Sacred Summons. You did not stumble here. Pause and let that sentence settle before you read another. 8 billion human beings are alive on this planet at this precise instant. Millions of books exist in print. Tens of millions of pieces of content flood every device on Earth in any given hour. And out of that ocean of noise, this exact title, these specific words, is what found your attention today. The skeptic in your head wants to call it random. The algorithm. The recommendation. A friend who mentioned it. A lucky scroll. Allow me, before we go any further, to dismantle that explanation gently and completely. In a Newtonian universe, the universe of billiard balls colliding, of dead matter pushed by mechanical force, Randomness is a respectable answer. In the quantum universe that science has been describing for the last 100 years, the universe you breathe in, dream in, and live inside, randomness is a mathematical fiction at the level of consciousness. Every event that enters the field of your attention has been invited there. By you, often without your conscious knowledge, but by you all the same. This book reached you because you sent for it, not with a stamped envelope, with a frequency. A long, low note your soul has been broadcasting for weeks, months, possibly years. A note that says, often in silence, I am tired of this. I am ready for more. There has to be more than this. The universe, what the mystics called the all, what the physicists call the field, what your grandmother called God, does not respond to spoken words. It responds to vibration, the vibration of your essential being, your dominant emotional state, the frequency of what you actually believe about yourself when no one is watching. When that note is held long enough and loud enough, the field organizes itself to deliver an answer. This book is one of those answers. When the ear is ready to hear, the mouth appears that will speak. That is an old Hermetic axiom, and it explains precisely why this material is in front of your eyes right now and not the eyes of your neighbor. Your neighbor is broadcasting a different frequency. Your neighbor's soul has not yet asked the questions yours has begun to ask. Your neighbor is still asleep in the comfortable sleep of the unawakened. You are not. If this title had crossed your path 2 years ago, you would have rolled your eyes and scrolled past. You would have called it nonsense. The fact that you did not, the fact that something in the title struck a string inside your chest and made it hum, is the evidence that something has changed in you. Your dial has moved. Your inner station has tuned itself to a higher channel. Channels broadcast only to those who can receive them. You are receiving now. That is why you are here. Let me say plainly what this book is and what it is not. It is not motivational fluff. It is not a recycling of slogans you have already heard from a dozen gurus. It is not a comfortable book. It will not pat you on the back and tell you that you are already perfect just as you are. There are plenty of those books, and they are doing their work. This book is a field manual, a working set of laws and instructions for navigating a reality whose true mechanics have been hidden from ordinary people for almost 2,000 years. The Hermetic tradition kept these laws encoded in symbol. The mystics whispered them in secret schools. The great minds, Tesla, Jung, Neville Goddard, the unknown authors of the Tao Te Ching, Einstein in his final decade, encountered fragments of them and tried, in the language available to them, to leave a record. We are going to gather those fragments and assemble the map. When you finish reading, you will understand why your external life is the exact reflection of your internal vibration and how to change the reflection by changing yourself at the source. You will understand why coincidences are nothing of the kind, and how to read the language the universe is constantly speaking to you in numbers, animals, songs, conversations, and the bodies of strangers. You will understand why the words you speak are spells that program your reality and how to stop cursing yourself 100 times a day without noticing. You will understand why time is not a straight line, but a folded landscape, and how the great mystics jumped from one point on it to another in what we now call quantum leaps. You will understand why the people in your life, every single one of them, including the ones who hurt you, are exactly the actors your soul cast for the role they are playing. You will understand why fear, properly read, is not your enemy but the gatekeeper of your next level, and how to walk past him without flinching. You will also understand why you, specifically, are alive at this moment in human history, and what your soul came here to do. We will get there. A warning before we begin. Once you absorb what is contained in these pages, you cannot ununderstand it. You cannot return to the comfortable position of victim. You cannot blame the economy, the government, your partner, your parents, your boss, the weather, or your luck. The architecture of those excuses will collapse, and you will be left standing in the rubble with the truth that has terrified and liberated every adept in every age. I am the one who is doing this to me, and therefore, I am the one who can stop. This is the most frightening news a human being can receive. It is also the most magnificent. Because if the power to build the prison was yours, the power to walk out of it is also yours. No savior is coming. The savior is the one reading this sentence. Take a breath. The fact that you are still reading, that you have not closed this and gone back to scrolling, is the contract being signed. Your soul knows what is happening. Your rational mind will catch up. Be patient with it. How to read what follows. Do not read this book the way you read a textbook. Do not try to memorize it. Do not underline everything. Do not race to the end so you can say you finished it. Read it like an oracle. Read one chapter, close the book, walk around for a day, watch what happens, watch what you notice, watch what shows up, watch what falls away, then read the next. Some chapters will land in your mind, and you will feel a small click, the sound of an internal door unlocking. Other chapters will pass through you on the first reading and only land 6 months later when life finally hands you the situation that makes them make sense. That is correct. The book will be working on you below the surface even when you think nothing is happening. If at any point a particular sentence seems to leap off the page and grab you by the throat, that sentence is for you specifically, today, about the exact situation you are inside right now. Stop. Underline it, write it on a card and put it where you will see it. The universe has just used this book as a delivery mechanism for a message it has been trying to get through to you for a long time. Welcome to the message. You did not find this book. This book found you. Now turn the page. The summons has been issued. The throne is empty. And it is waiting. Chapter 1, The Law of Resonance. Tesla and the Vibrating Universe. If you wish to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Attributed to Nikola Tesla. My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. Nikola Tesla. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. Read that sentence twice because everything else in this book is downstream of it. Most people, when they first encounter the so-called law of attraction, read it as a kind of cosmic vending machine. Insert positive thought, receive Mercedes. Then they are bewildered when, after weeks of cheerful affirmation in front of the bathroom mirror, no Mercedes appears. They conclude the law is fake. The law is not fake. They were operating it from the wrong layer. The universe does not respond to your stated desires. It responds to your vibration. And your vibration is not what you say. It is what you are. It is the dominant frequency of your nervous system, the long-running average of your inner state, the radio signal you broadcast through every cell of your body 24 hours a day, whether or not you are aware of it. You can stand in front of a mirror and announce, "I am rich," 1,000 times. If, in the deep tissue of your gut, the actual vibration you are emitting is, "I will never have enough," the universe, which is a flawless lie detector, will respond to the gut, not the mouth. The Mercedes does not arrive. More invoices arrive. Then you blame the law. The law is fine. You were lying, and the universe heard you. This chapter is going to give you a working understanding of why this is so and what to do about it. Once you grasp the law of resonance properly, every other principle in this book becomes a different application of the same single law. Master this one and you have already mastered the rest, the physics behind the mysticism. Forget spirituality for a paragraph. Let us speak only physics. You are not a solid body. Place your hand under a powerful enough microscope and you will see cells. Look inside the cells and you will see molecules and then atoms. Look inside an atom and you will discover something that has unsettled every careful mind that has properly looked. An atom is more than 99.99% empty space. The dot you call your fingernail, your femur, the apparently solid table in front of you. All of it is, by mass, almost entirely nothing. What occupies that nothing is energy. Vibrating. At an unimaginable rate. You are then a standing wave, a pattern of frequency held in shape by something. You are condensed sound. You are slowed light. The Greek mystics called it the logos. Modern physics calls it the wave function. The grandmother in any village calls it spirit. They are pointing at the same thing. Now, consider a phenomenon any piano tuner knows well. Place two pianos in a room. Strike the C key on the first one. Walk to the second. The C string of the second piano is humming. None of the others moved. They were in the same room. They received the same wave through the same air. But only the C string answered, because only the C string shared the frequency. This is sympathetic resonance. It is not metaphor. It is what is actually happening in the air molecules of that room, and it is what is happening on a far grander scale in the energetic field of your life. You are a piano. The universe is the second piano in the room. Whatever note you strike inside yourself, fear, hope, grievance, gratitude, suspicion, awe, the universe finds the corresponding string and makes it sound. The string that vibrates is the one that matches you. Everything else passes through and is ignored. That is why two people can walk the same street on the same day, in the same weather, and one of them returns home, reporting on the rudeness of strangers and the relentless bad luck of the world, while the other reports on the kindness of a stranger who held the door, the unexpected 10-pound note found on the pavement, and how strangely beautiful the light looked at 4 o'clock. Same street, different pianos, Tesla's quiet heresy. Nikola Tesla, the inventor whose work made our entire electrical civilization possible, spent the last decades of his life in a kind of holy obsession with frequency. He understood, earlier and more clearly than any of his contemporaries, that what we call matter is a temporary appearance of vibrating energy. He would write in essays largely ignored at the time that all perceptible matter comes from a primary substance of tenuity beyond conception, filling all space, the akasha or luminiferous ether. Tesla had read the Vedas. He saw what the rishis had seen 4,000 years earlier, only he saw it through the lens of an electrical engineer. In Colorado Springs, between 1899 and 1900, Tesla built a laboratory devoted to experiments with massive electrical resonance. Witnesses described lightning bolts 30 feet long crawling along the ceiling. He claimed in interviews that today read like prophecy that the entire planet could be tuned like a tuning fork, that energy was not something to be transmitted through wires, but something the earth itself could be made to ring with, available freely to any properly tuned receiver. The investors of his time did not see the vision. They cut his funding. He died in a hotel room in New York, in genuine poverty, feeding pigeons. But the principle Tesla worked from is the principle this chapter is about. The world is not made of stuff. The world is made of vibration shaped into temporary stuff, and vibration responds to vibration. Always. The only law more reliable than this one is the law that things fall. The two frequencies of every human life. If you watch yourself honestly for a few days, you will see that you are not running on one steady frequency. You are oscillating between two. There is a high frequency, the frequency of love, gratitude, curiosity, awe, generosity, peace, faith. When you are running on this frequency, the world rearranges itself around you in ways that look uncannily kind. The right book appears in your hand. The stranger says exactly the sentence you needed. The traffic lights all turn green. Your work flows. People smile back. You sleep well. There is a low frequency, the frequency of fear, resentment, scarcity, contempt, suspicion, complaint. When you are running on this frequency, the world also rearranges itself around you, but now in ways that confirm your worst suspicions. The phone rings with bad news. The car will not start. The check is late. The friend cancels. 3 drivers cut you off in traffic. Everyone seems to be having a worse day than you, and somehow, mysteriously, all of them have decided to take it out on you specifically. In neither case is the universe judging you. The universe is a mirror, and we will get to mirrors in the next chapter. The universe is simply a confirmation engine. It says yes to everything, including your darkest broadcast. The work of the awakened life is not to feel high vibration all the time. That is impossible and not even desirable. Some emotions exist for excellent reasons and must be felt. The work is to notice your dominant frequency, to catch yourself when you have spent 2 hours rehearsing a grievance about your sister, and to understand that you have spent 2 hours commissioning the universe to deliver more situations that will make you feel the same way. You are always commissioning. Every minute, the question is only whether you are awake to what you are ordering. The reticular filter. Biological science offers a piece of evidence for all of this that even the most stubborn skeptic has to take seriously. At the base of your brainstem, there's a structure called the reticular activating system. Its job is to filter the torrent of sensory information your nervous system receives every second. Millions of bits of light, sound, pressure, smell, motion is far too much for conscious processing. So the reticular system stands at the door and decides what to let through. Its rule is simple. It lets through what you have told it matters. The classic example: you decide to buy a particular model of blue car. Before that day, you almost never noticed cars on the road. Now, suddenly, the blue car is everywhere. They have not multiplied overnight. They were always there. Your filter has changed. Your brain is now showing you a slice of reality your old filter discarded. Apply this to opportunities, to kind people, to open doors, to the precise stranger whose path could change your life. They are around you right now. They have always been around you. But if your filter is set to life is hard and people cannot be trusted, your nervous system is professionally screening these realities out of your perception before they ever reach your conscious mind. You are not failing to attract them. You are attracting them perfectly well and then refusing to see them. This book has slipped past the filter. That alone is data. Something in you is loosened. Something has decided to let through information that the old version of you would have blocked. Honor that loosening. It is the literal beginning of the change, the practical work. There is no point in a chapter on resonance that does not give you something to do with your hands. This week, run one experiment. Pick a small thing the world is denying you, not the Mercedes, not the soulmate, something small enough that your skeptic will let you have it without resistance. A free coffee, a parking space at the front, a green light run on the way to work, an old friend texting you out of the blue. For 7 days, when you wake up, decide your dominant frequency for the day before your feet touch the floor. Not as a chant, as a posture. Inhabit for 90 seconds the body of the version of yourself for whom small kindnesses from the world are routine. Notice how that version of you breathes, how they walk, how they sit at the kitchen table. Let your nervous system rehearse that posture until it feels less foreign than it did when you started. Then go about your day. Do not strain. Do not check. By day 5 at the latest, the small thing will arrive. Often more than one of the small things. You will be tempted to call it coincidence. Resist that temptation. The whole point of the experiment is to prove to your own nervous system that the dial works. Once the small things confirm the mechanism for you, you will have permission, slowly, to test it on larger ones. This is how the law of resonance is learned, not by reading, by verifying. With your own hand on the dial, in your own life, this week. The universe is the second piano. You have been at the keyboard your whole life. Now, finally, you know what you have been playing. Chapter 2, The Mirror of Reality, the Hermetic Code. As above, so below, as within, so without. The Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. The all is mind, the universe is mental. The Kybalion, first Hermetic principle. Imagine the following scene. You wake in the morning, walk to the bathroom, and discover in the mirror that your face is smudged with coal. You are horrified. You hate the way you look, so you reach for a cloth and you begin with increasing fury to scrub the mirror. You scrub the glass, you scream at the glass, you cry at the glass. Your knuckles bleed from striking the glass. Hours pass, the smudge is still there. You laugh because no one would do that. No one would mistake the reflection for the source. No adult human alive would scrub the glass to clean their face. And yet, most adults spend their entire lives doing exactly that with their lives. They try to fix their bank account by working more hours while leaving the scarcity mindset that produces the bank account untouched. They try to fix their relationships by arguing with their partner while leaving the inner unworthiness that selected the partner unexamined. They try to fix the world by going to war with it, while leaving the inner war that built the outer one unaddressed. They scrub the mirror. They wonder why nothing changes. They die, exhausted. Welcome to the Hermetic Code, the oldest map we have. Long before psychology existed as a discipline, long before anyone said the words mental health or manifestation, an ancient stream of teaching ran through Egypt, Greece, the early Christian world, and the medieval alchemical schools. Its founder, real or symbolic, was called Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice great. To him is attributed a body of texts, the Corpus Hermeticum, the Emerald Tablet, and 1,000 secondary documents that contain, in coded form, the structural laws of reality. In 1908, 3 anonymous initiates compiled what they took to be the 7 core principles of this tradition into a small book called the Kybalion. That book, modest in size, contains the architecture of nearly every mystical tradition that has ever existed, including the modern New Age movement that is not always remembered where it borrowed its ideas from. The first of these 7 principles is the one that governs this chapter. The all is mind, the universe is mental. Reality, said the Hermeticists long before quantum physics arrived to startle us with the same conclusion, is not made primarily of matter. It is made of mind, in which matter appears as a kind of dream. The world you walk through is a thought taking a long, slow, persistent form. Your personal life is a thought of yours taking a long, slow, persistent form. The world is mental, and your life is mental, and you have been the dreamer the whole time. The second principle is the one stitched on every esoteric pendant in every spiritual shop on earth, almost always without anyone explaining what it actually means. As above, so below. As within, so without. The principle of correspondence states that the patterns repeat at every scale. The galaxy and the atom turn the same way. The structure of the nervous system mirrors the structure of a tree. The condition of your inner life expresses itself with mathematical precision as the condition of your outer life. There is no separation between within and without. They are 2 ends of one continuous string. Pluck either end, the other vibrates. This is the Hermetic Code in its simplest form. The world is a mirror. The mirror is faithful, and the mirror is reflecting you. The mirror has no opinion. People misunderstand this teaching constantly because they assume the mirror is moral. It is not. The mirror does not approve of you. The mirror does not disapprove of you. The mirror has no opinion at all. Its only job is to say yes. If you believe the world is dangerous, the mirror says yes. It serves you on the front page of the news, on the lips of strangers, on the noises in the street at night, an unbroken stream of evidence that the world is dangerous. If you believe the world is generous, the mirror says yes to that, and you become the person to whom strangers volunteer kindness, the person who finds 20-pound notes on the pavement, the person whose taxi driver turns out to be exactly the kind of person you needed to talk to today. The mirror is not creating these realities. They are all available all the time. The world contains both danger and generosity in vast quantities. What the mirror does is select. It returns to you, with uncanny accuracy, the slice of available reality that confirms your inner state. And it does so without judgment, without favoritism, without any care for whether you are happy with the result. The mirror is the most loyal servant any human will ever have. It says yes to absolutely everything you decide to be true about yourself and the world. The terrifying fact that follows from this is that your loyal servant has been confirming your worst self-suspicions for years, possibly decades, simply because you forgot to update your instructions. The observer effect. The Hermetic teaching that reality is mental had to wait 2,000 years for physics to arrive at the same conclusion. Then, physics arrived in a hurry. In the early 20th century, when scientists looked closely at the behavior of light, they discovered something that has destabilized every educated mind since. A particle of light, an electron, a photon, behaves as a particle, a small solid thing, when it is being observed. The same particle behaves as a wave, a smear of probability, when it is not being observed. The act of observation collapses the wave into a particle. Reality, at the smallest scale, depends on whether someone is watching. Try for a moment to absorb what this means. The world we inhabit is not, at its foundation, fixed. It is a field of probabilities that adopts a definite shape in response to consciousness paying attention to it. The observer is not a passive recipient of an already fixed reality. The observer is a participant. The observer is a cause. Every neutral event in your life is an electron, in a sense, suspended in possibility until your observation collapses it into a definite shape. Rain falls, a neutral event. The farmer in the drought labels it blessing, and his life becomes, around that label, blessed. The bride at the outdoor wedding labels it disaster, and her life becomes, around that label, disastrous. Same water, same physics, two different realities manufactured in the labeling. You spend the day labeling. You called the email from your employer bad news before you had even read it. You called the unfamiliar number probably a scam before you had answered. You called the stranger across the room not my type before you had heard them speak. Each of those labels was a collapse of possibility into a fixed shape. The shape you collapsed it into is now your reality with respect to that thing. By learning to collapse possibility into more useful shapes, you become the architect of your own life. The labeling is not optional. Your nervous system labels constantly, and trying to stop is exhausting. The choice is what you label with, the time delay. There is one final piece of the Hermetic mirror that you must understand, or you will give up too early. The mirror has a delay. If you change your face right now, if you decide today to become a person who broadcasts a different frequency, the mirror does not flip instantly. It takes time. The reality you are walking through today was set in motion by the version of you that existed 3 months ago, 6 months ago, possibly years ago. You are, in a real sense, walking through old light, like the light from a star that took 10,000 years to reach your eye. The events of your present life are the delayed echo of frequencies you set into motion in your past. This is where the great majority of people quit. They start changing on Monday. By Wednesday, they look around and see that the old reality is still there. The old bank account, the old partner, the old job, the old body in the mirror. They conclude, mistakenly, that the work is not working. They abandon the new frequency and return to the old one. The mirror, which had begun slowly to turn, now turns back. You must be willing to live for a season inside the gap between who you have decided to become and who the world still thinks you are. The world is not yet finished receiving your new transmission. Hold the new frequency anyway. Walk through the rooms of your old life, feeling like someone who already lives in the new one. Eat your meals as though you were already the version of yourself you are becoming. Speak as though it were already done. This is what the mystics meant when they said faith, not blind belief. The structural willingness to inhabit the inner reality before the outer reality is caught up. The bridge between who I have decided to be and what I now see in the world is built one day at a time, over months, by simply refusing to break the new note. The faith is the bridge. The mirror on the other side is preparing to confirm. The practical test: try this for 3 days. Choose one label you have been applying to your life. Money is hard. Love is dangerous. I'm not the kind of person who... anything. Pick one. Notice how reflexively your nervous system reaches for that label whenever the relevant subject comes up. For 3 days, when the moment arrives, replace that label with a different one, not its opposite. Opposites are too far for the nervous system to swallow at first. A neighboring label. Money is in motion. Love is teaching me something. I am the kind of person who is becoming. Watch what happens. By the 3rd day, the world will offer you a small confirmation. A bill will turn out to be smaller than you feared. A stranger will be unexpectedly warm. A conversation you had been avoiding will go better than you imagined. The mirror has begun to turn. You did not change the world in 3 days. You changed your face. The mirror, faithful as ever, did the rest. Chapter 3. The Cipher of Coincidence. Carl Jung and the Language the Universe Speaks. When an inner situation is not made conscious, it appears outside as fate. Carl Jung. Synchronicity reveals the meaningful connections between the subjective and objective world. Carl Jung, Synchronicity, and a causal connecting principle. A woman sat in the consulting room of a Swiss psychiatrist in the 1920s. She was, by his own description, brilliant, rational, educated, and impossible. Her mind was an iron fortress. Every interpretation he offered, she dismissed with a clean, logical argument. Every dream she reported, she immediately analyzed in a way that prevented any actual feeling from reaching her. She had been stuck in this defensive perfection for months. That morning she described a dream from the previous night. Someone, in the dream, had given her a piece of expensive jewelry, a golden scarab. She narrated this with her usual elegant detachment, already in her own mind, classifying the symbol. While she was speaking, the psychiatrist became aware of a soft tapping on the window behind him. He turned and opened it. A flying insect, at the precise wrong time of year, in a country where this particular insect should not have been visible at all, flew in and landed on his hand. It was a Cotonia aurata, a scarabaeid beetle, the closest creature in the entire fauna of northern Europe to the gold scarab she had just described. He turned, holding the beetle. He extended his hand. He said, "Here is your scarab." The fortress collapsed. The psychiatrist was Carl Gustav Jung. He kept the beetle as a memento for the rest of his life. The moment, he later wrote, was the seed from which his theory of synchronicity grew. It was the moment a man whose entire profession had been built on rigorous causal analysis was forced to admit that there is, in the fabric of reality, a second principle of order, a principle that acts not by causation, but by meaning. Two events, one inner and one outer, can be connected without one of them having physically caused the other. They can be connected because they belong to the same meaning. Jung gave this principle a name, synchronicity. What synchronicity is and is not. Synchronicity is the meaningful coincidence. It is the moment when an internal state, a thought, a dream, a question, a need, corresponds with no apparent causal pathway to an external event of the same shape. You are thinking of a friend you have not spoken to in years. The phone rings. It is them. You are agonizing over whether to take a job. You step outside. The first vehicle that passes is a delivery truck bearing the company's logo. You turn on the radio in the next room. The first song that begins says, in its opening line, "Go for it." You ask the universe for a sign. 2 days later, a stranger in a coffee shop tells the friend they are with, too loudly at the next table, exactly within your hearing, the precise sentence you needed someone, anyone, to say to you out loud. These are not the universe being cute. They are the universe being intelligible. They are evidence that the inner and the outer are not, as your education has insisted, two separate worlds. The skeptic has a name for this, and the name is confirmation bias. Of course, the skeptic says, you only notice the coincidences and ignore the misses. Of course, your brain is wired to find patterns in noise. This is true, and it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is that pattern recognition is a real function performing on a real signal. The signal is faint. The signal is intermittent. The signal can absolutely be drowned out by paranoia and projection. But the signal is also genuinely there, and the more you tune to it, the more obvious it becomes. The skeptic is not wrong about the noise. The skeptic is wrong about the absence of signal under the noise. Jung, who was nothing like a credulous mystic, he was a rigorous clinician who built his ideas on case after case after case, eventually wrote, near the end of his life, that he had observed enough synchronicities in his patients that the alternative explanations had begun to seem, to him, more strained than the explanation itself. The universe is intelligible. It speaks. It speaks in its own language. Most adults have forgotten how to read it. The grammar of signs. The universe does not speak the language you speak. It speaks in symbols, in patterns, in repetitions, in resonant coincidences. Once you understand its grammar, the speech becomes audible. Repeated numbers. Almost everyone in the awakening community has had the experience of suddenly seeing the same number repeatedly. 1111 on the clock, then on a receipt, then on a license plate, then on the timestamp of a message, over a period of weeks or months. The number is not magical in itself. It is a trigger, a way for your attention to be drawn to a frequency you are now moving inside of. The traditional readings are useful, but secondary. The primary signal is the recognition itself. The universe is letting me know I am being seen. Animals appearing out of place, a hawk on a city balcony, a butterfly that lands on your hand and stays there, a stray dog that follows you for half a mile, a fox that crosses your path at a bend in the trail and looks at you for a beat too long. Animals do not have egos. They are unmediated, available, plugged in. They make excellent messengers because they will go where they are told to go without requiring an explanation. When an animal appears in a way that breaks the normal pattern of its appearance, ask yourself, what was I just thinking? The answer is the message. Conversations overheard. You're on a bus. You're obsessing internally about money. Two people sit down behind you and one of them tells the other, in their own conversation about their own life, exactly the sentence you needed to hear. They do not know you. They will never know they spoke to you. They were used. The radio, the shuffle, the first thing on the screen. Modern technology, for all its noise, makes excellent oracle equipment. Ask a clear question. Activate any randomizing process. Notice the first thing that comes through. The shuffle algorithm is not magical. It is selecting from a possibility space, and at the moment of selection, your nervous system and the field are in a brief synchrony that produces the answer. Use it. The body. Of all signs, the body is the most reliable because the body is not capable of lying to you. A decision arises. Watch what happens to your shoulders, to your stomach, to your breath. Contraction, not tightening. The body says no. Expansion, warmth in the chest, lightness. The body says yes. The mind will argue with this. The body does not argue. It only reports. Learn to listen to the report before the mind rewrites it. The rule of 3. Here is the rule that will protect you from one of the great failure modes of synchronicity work: paranoia. Once you begin to look for signs, you will see them everywhere, including in places where they are not. Every cloud will look like an omen. Every coincidence will demand interpretation. You will become the kind of person who cannot leave the house because a magpie crossed your path. This is not awakening. This is anxiety wearing a spiritual costume. The rule of 3. The first time, it is an event. The second time, it is a coincidence. The third time, it is a sign. If the universe wants you to pay attention to something, it will repeat it from 3 different sources in a short period of time, without your having sought it. The book A Stranger Mentions is mentioned again that week by a podcast, then a third time by a friend at dinner. That is a sign. The book has come for you. If you have to force the meaning, if you saw a black bird that you decided was an eagle that you decided meant flight, it is not a sign. It is your projection. A real sign arrives with peace, with recognition, with a small click of course. A projection arrives with anxiety, with insistence, with the need to prove. Learn to feel the difference. The body knows. Why you are receiving signs now. Synchronicity is not constant. There are seasons of life in which you will go for months without a single notable coincidence. There are other seasons in which they will be falling on your head daily. The shift is not random. Synchronicities increase in 3 conditions: when your vibration rises, when you are in a moment of major life transition, and when your soul is approaching a decision point at which it needs guidance. If you are reading this book, you are almost certainly inside one of those 3 conditions, possibly all 3. Take the synchronicities seriously. They are not random pleasant noise. They are the field's way of confirming in real time that the path you are stepping onto is the correct one, and that you are not making the choice alone. Carl Jung, near the end of his life, was asked by a journalist if he believed in God. He paused for a long time. Then he answered, in a sentence that has been quoted ever since, "I do not believe. I know." He had spent 40 years watching the inside and the outside of human lives match up, again and again, in ways that no rational explanation could exhaust. He had become unable to deny what his patients had been showing him. The universe, he had come to know, is not silent. It is not mute. It is not random. It is in conversation with us every day in every form it can find. The work of awakening, in part, is the work of remembering how to hear the voice. The voice has been calling your name, possibly for years. Today, with this chapter, you are taking a small step toward saying, "Yes, I hear you. Speak again. It will. Watch." Chapter 4. I Am, Therefore It Is. Neville Goddard's Doctrine of Imagination. Imagination is the only redemptive power in the universe. Neville Goddard. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue feeling that it is fulfilled until that which you feel objectifies itself. Neville Goddard. The Power of Awareness. In a small lecture hall in New York, in the late 1940s, a tall, thin man with a Barbadian accent stood on a stage and told a room full of Americans that the only God who had ever existed was the I'm alive in their own consciousness. He spoke without notes, without robes, without ceremony. He said things that, on first hearing, sounded like blasphemy, and on the second, sounded like the most obvious truth a person had ever heard. His name was Neville Goddard. He had been a dancer on Broadway in the 1920s. He had walked away from a successful stage career after meeting a teacher in Manhattan, an old black gentleman named Abdullah, of whom we know almost nothing, who told him in their first conversation, "Neville, you are 6 months late." For the next 40 years, Neville Goddard taught a single doctrine, in different words, in city after city, in book after book. The doctrine has been buried under so many decades of self-help repackaging that most modern readers do not know they are quoting him. Almost every contemporary teacher of manifestation is a downstream tributary of the river Neville opened. This chapter is going to give you the original water, the single sentence. Neville's entire teaching can be reduced without loss to a single sentence. Consciousness is the only reality, and your imagination is the operative power within consciousness. Read it slowly, then read it again, because every word is doing work. Consciousness is the only reality, meaning the world you call objective, the world of brick and bone and bank statement, is a consequence of consciousness, not a cause of it. Reality is not happening to consciousness. Reality is happening within consciousness. The bricks are downstream of the dream, not upstream. And your imagination is the operative power within consciousness, meaning the lever by which consciousness shapes reality is what you, casually and dismissively, call your imagination. The faculty, you have been told, since childhood, is the place where unreal things live. The faculty teachers told you to bring back to earth. The faculty parents told you to grow out of. Neville taught that this faculty, your imagination, is in fact the most concrete and operative force in the entire universe. What you imagine with feeling and with persistence will, by an inevitable mechanism, manifest itself in the world of effects. Not might, not could, will. He stated this with a flatness and confidence that unnerved many of his listeners. He used the word law. The law, he said, with a capital L, the I Am. Neville's name for the deep self, the self that does the imagining, was the I Am. He took this from the book of Exodus, in which the voice from the burning bush identifies itself to Moses with the words, "I am that I am." Neville read this not as the name of an external God, but as the description of the nature of consciousness itself. The deepest fact about you is not your name, your job, your history, your body. The deepest fact about you is that you can say, truthfully, I am. That bare awareness prior to any predicate is what every mystical tradition in the world points to under different names. Now, said Neville, watch what happens after that I am. I am poor. I am unloved. I am too old, too tired, not the kind of person who. Whatever predicate you attach to your I am becomes, by the law of consciousness, your destiny. You are not telling yourself a story. You are signing a contract. The world hears the contract. The world arranges itself to honor the contract. The contract is, by mystical law, fulfilled. This is why Neville was so insistent that his students stop the casual self-curses. I am terrible with money. I am bad at relationships. I am always sick. I am not a creative person. Each of these is a sworn statement of identity. The world responds to identity, not to wishes. The world serves whoever you say you are. Reverse the curses, and you reverse the contract. Not by lying. Neville was very clear that the new statement must be imagined into the body until it feels true, not merely repeated mechanically. I am loved must be felt, not chanted. I am abundant must be inhabited, not affirmed. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is the seal that closes the spell. Live in the end. Neville's most famous instruction was the phrase, live in the end. Most people, when they want something, spend their inner lives in the middle of wanting it. They imagine themselves striving for it, reaching, hoping, pursuing, asking. They live mentally inside the I am trying to get state. The universe, faithful mirror that it is, responds by giving them more of the experience of trying to get. They never arrive because they have not yet, in their imagination, been at the destination. Neville's instruction was simple and counterintuitive. Skip the middle. Imagine the end. The moment after the wish is granted, not the granting, the afterwards. Imagine, in vivid sensory detail, the smallest, most ordinary scene that would be true only if your wish were already real. You want a particular job? Do not imagine the interview. Imagine the conversation with a friend 2 months after you have started, in which you mention, casually, in passing, that this Wednesday is your 1-month anniversary at the new place and they really seem to like you there. Imagine the friend's tone. Imagine where you were sitting. Imagine the smell of the coffee. You want a relationship? Do not imagine the first kiss. Imagine the 3rd Saturday morning, lying in bed beside this person, listening to the rain on the window, having a conversation about what to make for breakfast. Imagine the particular weight of their leg next to yours. Imagine the exact way they say your name when half asleep. You want financial freedom? Do not imagine the moment of receiving the money. Imagine the morning, 6 months from now, when you wake up and remember, with a small shock, that you no longer have to worry. Imagine the specific way the morning light hits your kitchen. Imagine what you decide to do with the day. The detail is the point. Vague imagining produces vague results. Specific imagining, repeated with feeling, produces specific results. The unconscious does not respond to slogans. It responds to scenes. Sleep with the wish fulfilled. Neville taught a particular technique, simple to the point of seeming too easy, that he claimed was the most powerful single practice he had ever found. He called it sleeping with the wish fulfilled. In the moments before sleep, when the conscious mind has begun to soften and the unconscious is opening, replay in your imagination a single short scene, the kind of small ordinary scene we just described. That would be true only if your wish were already granted. Replay it until the feeling of naturalness settles in your chest, until it feels less like fantasy and more like memory. Then, let yourself drift to sleep with that feeling as your last conscious state. Do this every night for a season. He said it would change anything that could be changed. Why does this work? Because the moment between wakefulness and sleep is the moment when the conscious mind, which has been guarding the unconscious all day, finally relaxes. Whatever feeling you carry across that threshold imprints itself on the unconscious in a way no amount of daytime affirmation can match. The unconscious, once imprinted, begins with no further effort from you to organize your nervous system, your perceptions, your decisions, your synchronicities, your magnetism, to make the imprinted scene true. The mystics knew this. The neuroscientists are now confirming it. The hypnagogic state is when the brain rewrites itself. Use the rewrite well. Revision. Neville taught one more practice, less famous but equally powerful, called revision. At the end of every day, before sleep, review the events of the day in your mind. Notice any moment that did not unfold the way you would have wanted it to. The argument you had with a colleague, the traffic that made you late, the conversation that went sideways, the mistake you made. Then, this is the crucial move. Reimagine that moment, in your mind, with full sensory detail. Replay the scene the way you would have wanted it to go. Let your colleague respond with kindness instead of irritation. Let the traffic clear. Let the conversation be smooth. Let the mistake be averted. Do this not as wishful thinking, but as a deliberate revision of the imaginal record. Neville's claim, and again, he was insistent that it was a law, not a hopeful theory, was that the unconscious does not strongly distinguish between events that happened and events that were vividly imagined. The revised scene, repeated with feeling, becomes part of your inner record. And because the inner record is what the world reflects back at you, revising the inner record changes the future. Try this for a week. At the end of each day, revise 3 moments from the day. Imagine each as you would have wanted it. Then sleep. Watch what happens to your daytime reality. Watch the same kinds of situations begin to resolve themselves more cleanly. Watch the colleague who was difficult yesterday suddenly soften today. Watch the rough edges of your life begin to round. This is not magic in the cartoon sense. It is law. It is a lever you have not been told you were allowed to pull. Now you know. The skeptic's last stand. Your skeptic, and you should always keep a skeptic, just one for hygiene, will at this point be raising a last and reasonable objection. If imagination creates reality, why are there starving children? Why are there cancer wards? Why does the man who imagines wealth still live in a one-room apartment? These are fair questions, and Neville did not duck them. His answer, in summary, was this: yes, imagination is the operative power, but it is the deep imagination, the imagination of being, the imagination saturated with feeling and held with persistence. It is not surface imagination, which most modern readers, raised on 1,000 listicles about visualization, mistake for the real thing. The starving child does not lack imagination. The starving child is born into a society and a body that has had its possibilities collapsed by generations of deeper-than-imagined trauma. The man in the one-room apartment who imagines wealth on Tuesdays and feels ruined on every other day of the week has not, in fact, been doing the work Neville described. The law operates flawlessly. It operates from your dominant imaginative state, not from the brief tourist visits you pay to a nicer mental address. The good news is that the law does not require perfection. It requires direction. Tilt the dominant imaginative state, even by 10%, in the direction of the life you actually want, and the world begins, slowly, to bend. Tilt it by 20%, the world bends faster. The work is to keep tilting. The work is daily. The work is for the rest of your life. But it is the work that actually works, and that is what Neville Goddard came to tell us in a small lecture hall in New York in 1940-something, with no microphone and no publicist and no marketing plan. He told a few hundred people, and a few hundred people told a few thousand, and now you are reading about it in a chapter of a book that found you for a reason. Begin tonight. Pick one scene. Live in its end. Sleep inside it. Wake and watch. The law is on. It has always been on. You have only just begun to use it on purpose. Chapter 5. The Word as Wand, the Alchemy of Speech. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Gospel of John 1:1. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21. Every traditional culture on the planet knew something about the spoken word that modern people have forgotten. Every ancient priesthood guarded sacred sounds. Every shaman knew that to name a thing was to bring it into being. Every magician, actual magicians, not stage magicians, operated on the assumption that a properly intoned word, in the right inner state, was a tool capable of bending reality. Modern people, having traded the inner life for the entertainment industry, treat words as free. We throw them around at the rate of thousands per day. We curse ourselves and laugh. We complain about our lives in casual speech, and then wonder why our lives keep getting more like the speech. We say, "I'm broke, and I'm exhausted, and I'm so done, and I'm dying," with no awareness whatsoever that we are, with each of these sentences, casting a spell on our own nervous system and on the field around us. Your grandparents, who were closer to the old wisdom than you are, told you to be careful what you say out loud. You laughed at them. They were right. This chapter is about the alchemy of speech, what your words actually do, why they are not free, and how to begin using them on purpose, the way a craftsman uses a tool, instead of scattering them across your life like a child, scattering matches in a wood. Abracadabra. The word is older than English, older than Latin. It comes from the Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke, and its literal meaning is, I create as I speak. This is not a stage magician's nonsense syllable. It is one of the oldest preserved spell words in the human record, and it is a precise statement of the metaphysical doctrine that has been continuously known and continuously forgotten in every age. I create as I speak. Every sentence that leaves your lips is, in this view, an instruction to the field. Every sentence you complete is a contract you have signed. The contract is honored. The doctrine appears, slightly disguised, in the opening of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It appears in the Hindu cosmology, in which the universe is born of the syllable Om and unfolds in waves of vibration into all manifest forms. It appears in the Genesis account, where God creates by speaking, "Let there be light," and not by any other means. The first creative act of the divine, in the central scripture of Western civilization, is speech. You are made in that image. Your speech does the same thing on a smaller scale. You've been assigned at birth a fragment of the creative power. The assignment cannot be revoked. The only question is whether you use it consciously. The 3 levels of the word. Your words operate at 3 levels simultaneously. Most people only know about the first. The first level is communication. You speak in order to convey information to another person. You ask for the salt, you give directions, you make the small talk required by polite life. This is the obvious function and the only one the surface mind notices. The second level is programming. Every word you speak is heard before anyone else hears it by your own nervous system. Your brain is the first audience for your sentences, and it does not have the luxury of disagreeing with what it hears. If you say, 10 times a day I'm exhausted, your brain does not assess the truth value of the claim. It accepts the claim and adjusts your physiology to match. You will, in fact, become more exhausted than you would have been if you had said, I am tired, but I am restoring. Each sentence is a line of code your nervous system runs. The third level is the spell. Your words, said with sufficient feeling, ripple outward into the field as instructions. The field receives the instruction and begins in its slow and accurate way to organize circumstances to confirm the instruction. Money is hard for me is heard by the field as a request for the experience of money being hard. The request is granted. I always end up with the wrong people is heard as a request for the experience of ending up with the wrong people. The request is granted. The field is not punishing you. The field is helping you in the only way it knows how to remain consistent with your stated identity. These 3 levels run continuously. Every sentence does all 3 at once. The careless speaker is doing all 3 carelessly. The conscious speaker is doing all 3 on purpose. The catalog of self-curses. Take a small notebook today, and for 3 days, write down every negative sentence you complete about yourself out loud. Do not edit. Do not censor. Just record. You will be horrified. Most reasonably functional adults, when they do this exercise honestly, discover that they curse themselves between 30 and 100 times a day. They say, I'm so stupid. I always do this. Of course it had to happen to me. I'm not the kind of person who, I'm bad at this. I never get a break. Story of my life. Just my luck. I knew this would happen. I can't catch a break. I'm too old for this. I'm too tired to deal. I'm so done. Each of these is a tiny spell. Each is a small contract signed with the field. The field, faithful to its job, is quietly arranging the world around you to make sure each contract is honored. After 30 years of small contracts, you wake up one day inside a life that is, in fact, exactly the life all those contracts described. You are bewildered. You wonder how you got here. You got here one curse at a time. The good news is that the mechanism runs in both directions. The same field that has been faithfully delivering on 30 years of self-curse will, with equal patience, begin to deliver on a different stream of language. This is what every prayer tradition is doing at its core. It is what blessing is. The blessing is the deliberate counterspell, the conscious choice to put a different sentence into the field where the curse used to live. You do not have to become a fanatic of positive speech. You only have to stop the bleeding, catch yourself in the middle of the curse, let it die unfinished, replace it when you can with a neutral sentence or a slightly opener one. I'm so stupid becomes I'm learning. Story of my life becomes interesting that this came up again. I can't afford that becomes. I'm choosing not to spend on that today. None of this is denial. All of it is a refusal to keep handing the field instructions you do not want it to follow. The prayer of the unconvinced. Many readers will balk here. They will say, I cannot stand in front of the mirror and chant I am wealthy when my account is empty. It feels like lying. It feels worse than the original honest acknowledgement that I am broke. The affirmation feels false, and the falsity makes it useless. This objection is correct, and Neville Goddard, whom we met in the previous chapter, agreed with it. The mechanical chanted affirmation performed without inner agreement is worse than useless. It produces in the body a feeling of, I am pretending, and the field receives that feeling, not the words. Here is the workaround that the mystics have always used. You shift the verb tense. I am wealthy is too far for an empty account nervous system to swallow. The system rebels, and the rebellion wrecks the spell. I am becoming wealthy is closer, but still triggers the inner skeptic. I am open to wealth. I am beginning to see the path to wealth. Wealth is finding its way to me. I am the kind of person to whom money is starting to flow. Each of these sentences is a sentence the nervous system can swallow without choking. Each one starts the program without triggering the inner alarm. The skeptic accepts the sentence. The unconscious begins to organize around it. The spell is cast quietly, without the usual self-resistance. This is the prayer of the unconvinced. It is the kind of speech available to a beginner. It works. Use it. Speaking about other people. The alchemy of speech does not end with what you say about yourself. It extends with equal weight to what you say about other people and what you say about the world. Every time you speak ill of a person, you carve a groove in your own nervous system in the shape of that ill speech. The groove deepens. After enough repetitions, you cannot see the person without seeing through that groove. You have built with your own words the lens through which you will now perceive them. You may have been reasonable in your initial assessment. You are no longer reasonable. You are inside the groove. This is why traditional spiritual teachings across every culture place such heavy emphasis on what the Buddhists call right speech. It is not moralism, it is mechanics. The mouth shapes the speaker as much as the listener. To speak ill, habitually, of others is to construct with your own labor a smaller and meaner version of yourself. Speaking well of people, especially those who have wronged you, is one of the most concrete spiritual disciplines that exists. Not flattery, not denial of harm. The practice of finding in the person who has hurt you the one dimension that remains true and good, and choosing to mention that dimension when their name comes up. He was a difficult father, and he taught me how to fix anything mechanical. She was unkind to me at the end, and she had a real gift for making strangers feel welcomed at the start. This is not weakness. This is a refusal to let the wound write your tongue. The world you walk through is, in part, a structure built out of the sentences you complete about it. Build it well. Build it on purpose. The spell is being cast either way. Chapter 6. The Red Thread. Soul contracts and predestined meetings. An invisible red thread connects those who are destined to meet, regardless of time, place, or circumstance. The thread may stretch or tangle, but it will never break. East Asian legend. Everyone is you pushed out. Neville Goddard. Look around the room you are in. If you are alone, look at the room as it is. If you are in public, look at the people. If you have a partner, parent, child, or friend nearby, look at them. Your physical eyes will report to you that there are objects and people separate from each other in space, going about their separate lives, and that the boundary of your skin is the boundary of yourself. Your physical eyes are wrong. Or more precisely, they are correct about a slice of reality so thin that mistaking it for the whole reality has been the great spiritual error of the modern age. If you could see, even for 1 minute, with the perception that the mystics have always reported, and that physicists, in their hesitant late 20th century way, have begun to confirm, you would not see what you currently see. You would see a vast, luminous, intricate web of filaments connecting every conscious being in your field to every other. You would see threads running from the center of your chest to the center of the chest of the stranger across the train carriage, to the woman behind the cash register, to the man you have not spoken to in 6 years, who is, at this exact second, on the other side of the world thinking about you. You would see that no one in your life is there by accident. Not the beloved partner, not the difficult mother, not the colleague who irritates you, not the stranger who held the door for you yesterday and disappeared. Each of them is, in the language of the older traditions, a pearl on the net. Each is connected to you by a thread that was set in place before either of you arrived in this lifetime. Each is playing a role in a drama whose script your soul, before birth, helped write. This is the chapter about the red thread, the web of Indra. In ancient Vedic philosophy, there is a particular metaphor that has survived 4,000 years because nothing better has ever been offered for the structure of reality. It is called the web of Indra. Imagine an infinite net extending in every direction. At every intersection of every thread, there's a brilliant pearl. Each pearl is so polished that it reflects in its surface every other pearl in the net. To touch a single pearl is to send a tremor through every thread of the net, and every other pearl in its turn registers the touch. You are a pearl. So is every other conscious being. The threads are real. They are not metaphor. They are something the mystics could see, and the rest of us were taught to ignore. This is why, when you think strongly of a person you have not spoken to in years, the phone rings and they are on the other end. The phone call was not caused by your thought in any standard mechanical sense. The phone call was the pearl on the other end, registering your tremor on the thread. They felt the pull. They reached for the device. Whatever conscious story they tell themselves about why they called you, the underlying mechanism is older than telephones. This explains existential loneliness, by the way. You have never been alone. You cannot be alone. The cell phone in your pocket is not an analogy of the web of Indra. It is a crude technological imitation of a mechanism your soul has always had access to. You have been telepathically connected to every person who has ever mattered to you for your entire life. The technology only made the connection visible to those who could not perceive it directly. Soul contracts. There is a teaching present in some form in nearly every mystical tradition that goes by the name soul contracts. The Tibetans speak of it, the Sufis hint at it, modern channeled material, for what it is worth, returns to it constantly. The Western philosophers Plato and Plotinus described something close. The teaching, in its plain form, is this. Before each lifetime, your soul, in counsel with other souls, agrees in advance to certain encounters and certain experiences for the purpose of growth. You sign a contract. The other soul signs a contract. You both forget. You arrive in the world. The contracts unfold without your conscious knowledge. The mother who was unable to love you the way you needed was, at the soul level, your teacher in self-love. She agreed, before either of you was born, to play the role of the parent whose unavailability would force you, in the second half of your life, to find within yourself the love she could not provide. She did this for you. From the soul's view, it was an act of service, however cruel it looked from the personality's view. The partner who deceived you, who broke your trust in a way that took years to recover from, was, at the soul level, your training in discernment. He agreed to be the teacher whose pain would teach you, over time, to listen to the small voice in your stomach that you had been ignoring all your life. He did this so that, by the 3rd decade, you would no longer be the kind of person who can be deceived in that particular way. The training was harsh. It was also exact. The friend who quietly helped you through the worst year of your life, who was there somehow every time you needed them, who said the right thing, who appeared with food on the doorstep without your having asked, was, at the soul level, your agent of grace. They had agreed, in some prior covenant, to be there for that year. After the year, they may drift out of your daily life. The contract was for the year. It is now fulfilled. You will protest. This is convenient mysticism. It excuses the abuser. It romanticizes the harm. Hear the teaching carefully. It does not excuse abuse. It does not say the abuser was right. It says, on a level that operates beneath the personality's level of moral judgment, that the abuser was an instrument of growth that the soul, in its terrible wisdom, agreed to use. The instrument can still be removed from your life. The instrument can still face human consequences. The lawful prosecution of human harm continues. And, simultaneously, on the soul level, the work the experience did in you is real and is yours to keep, and is not undone by the wrongness of the means. This is hard. It is also liberating. Because the moment you can hold the difficult people in your life as fellow contractors rather than as random villains, an enormous amount of your bitterness becomes unnecessary. The bitterness was the fuel of victimhood. Without it, you can stop carrying them. They did their job. You can release them with a strange, level gratitude and walk forward. The red thread of fate. In East Asian folklore, there's a particular legend about a particular kind of soul contract, and it is the legend the chapter is named after. The legend says that the gods, before each lifetime, tie an invisible red thread to the smallest finger of every soul that is destined to encounter another soul of significance. The thread is elastic. It can stretch across continents. It can stretch across decades. It can tangle. It can be ignored. It cannot be broken. If you are tied to someone by the red thread, you will meet them. You may have to wait. You may have to take an unexpected path. But the meeting will occur with a kind of inevitability that, when it happens, you will recognize. You have already met some of these people. There was the friend on the first day of school with whom you bonded in 2 minutes as though you had been friends since before either of you had been born. There was the lover in your 20s with whom the first conversation ran for 5 hours and was, recognizably, the continuation of a conversation begun much earlier. There was the teacher in your 30s whose words landed inside you with the click of a key turning in a lock that had been waiting. These were red thread meetings. Your physical meeting was new. The connection was old. Some of these people stay for life. Most do not. The duration of the relationship is not the measure of its significance. There are red thread meetings that lasted 3 weeks and rerouted the entire trajectory of a life. There are red thread meetings that lasted a single evening and changed everything. The thread does not measure time. It measures necessity. You have not yet met some of them. There are people, alive on this planet right now, to whom you are tied, whom you have not yet encountered. They are coming. Some of them are months away. Some are years. Your job is not to find them. Your job is to keep moving, keep raising your frequency, keep saying yes to the small inner promptings, and the threads will do their work. You will look up one day, and they will be standing there. The fractal pattern. There is a related teaching that explains why so many people seem to live the same painful relationship over and over again with different bodies attached. The universe, as a teacher, is patient and exact. If your soul has come into this lifetime to learn a particular lesson, let us say, learning to set healthy boundaries, the universe will provide curriculum until the lesson is learned. If the first curriculum is a father who does not respect your no, and you complete childhood without learning the lesson, the universe does not stop. It enrolls you in your 20s in a boss who does not respect your no. Different costume, same lesson. If you do not learn it there, it enrolls you, in your 30s, in a partner who does not respect your no. Same lesson, more intensity. If you do not learn it there, in your 40s, it enrolls you in an illness that forces you to begin saying no to everything that was draining you. The lesson, by now, is learned by the body, because the personality refused to learn it by other means. If you find yourself living the same painful relationship pattern with what looks like different people, do not waste another season blaming the people. They are actors in different costumes who have been faithfully showing up to teach the lesson the curriculum has decreed. The moment you learn the lesson, actually learn it in your body in a way that changes what you allow. The curriculum changes. The actors stop appearing. The fractal breaks. This is the great gift of recognizing the pattern. It removes the injustice of the suffering. The suffering has not been pointless. The suffering has been purposeful, even when the purpose was hidden from you. Once the purpose is fulfilled, the suffering stops needing to recur. You graduate. Chapter 7. Wu Wei, The Art of Effortless Power. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Lao Tzu. 2,500 years ago, in the disintegrating remains of the Zhou dynasty, an old archivist by the name of Lao Tzu, if he existed at all, which the scholars cannot agree on, is said to have grown weary of human folly and decided to leave the kingdom for the western mountains, where he meant to disappear without trace. At the western pass, the keeper of the gate recognized him and refused to let him through unless he wrote down what he knew. The old man sat at the gate. He wrote in 5,000 Chinese characters a small book. He handed it to the gatekeeper. He walked out into the mountains and was never seen again. The book was the Tao Te Ching. It is, by some measures, the most translated book in human history after the Bible. It has shaped Chinese civilization, Japanese aesthetics, the entire Zen tradition, and large portions of every modern attempt to understand a particular kind of power that does not look like power. At the heart of the Tao Te Ching is a single concept that has no clean English translation. The Chinese is Wu Wei. The literal characters mean no action. The meaning is something else. Wu Wei is not the absence of action. Wu Wei is action that flows so perfectly from the situation, from the inner state, from the alignment of the actor with the moment, that it does not feel like effort. It is the action of water finding the path down the mountain. It is the action of a great athlete in their flow state. It is the action of the master craftsman who carves the wood by following its grain rather than fighting it. You have been operating almost all your life by the opposite principle. You have been trying to force. This chapter is about why force is the wrong tool for almost everything that matters, and how to learn the older, better art, the folly of forcing. Consider the things you have wanted most in your life: the career, the relationship, the body, the recognition, the sense of inner peace. Consider how you have, until now, tried to obtain them. You have pushed. You have set goals, made plans, worked harder, woken earlier, sacrificed sleep, sacrificed presence, sacrificed health. You have leaned into the day with your shoulders forward, as though the day were a wall you could move by sheer pressure. You have done this for years. You are exhausted. Look at what you have got for it. You have got some of what you wanted, often less than you hoped, often in a form distorted by the cost of acquiring it. You have a career, but no peace. You have a relationship, but no intimacy. You have a body, but no joy in it. You have recognition, but it does not feel the way you thought it would. Lao Tzu, 2,500 years ago, looked at his contemporaries doing the same thing and wrote about it with a calm, almost amused exactness. Those who try to grasp the world will lose it. Those who try to force the world bring their own ruin. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who strides cannot maintain the pace. The forcing does not work because force is the wrong tool for working with anything that has its own intelligence. The world has its own intelligence. Human relationships have their own intelligence. Your nervous system has its own intelligence. Forcing them produces, in every case, the same result. A temporary surface compliance that costs more than it produces leaves the real situation unchanged underneath and exhausts the forcer. You cannot force a flower to bloom faster by pulling on it. You cannot force trust to form by demanding it. You cannot force a creative breakthrough by sitting at the desk longer. You cannot force healing by willing yourself to be well. You cannot force love by trying harder. Each of these requires the other approach, the older approach, the one Lao Tzu spent his 5,000 characters trying to describe: the way of water. Lao Tzu's central image, returned to again and again across the Tao Te Ching, is water. The highest virtue is like water, he wrote in Chapter 8. Water, he observed, is the softest substance in the world. And yet, given enough time, water cuts canyons into stone. Water defeats every obstacle by not contesting it. Water flows around the rock. Water finds the lowest available place and rests there. Water, by giving way, eventually moves everything. This is Wu Wei in its purest form. The water does not strain. The water has no agenda. The water is simply being water, fully, completely, without self-consciousness. And in being water, it does what no amount of straining could ever accomplish. The instruction the Tao Te Ching keeps giving in different forms on different pages is be like water. Yield where yielding works. Flow around the obstacle when going through it would only produce damage on both sides. Trust that the lowest, least glamorous place is often the place from which the most is accomplished. The river that thinks it must be a waterfall to be impressive will eventually run out of mountain. There is a Western version of this teaching, hidden inside the prayer attributed to a Christian theologian. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, courage to change what I can, and wisdom to know the difference. The wisdom is the Wu Wei. It is the knowing in any given moment, whether this is one of the things to which you must apply force, or one of the things to which you must apply yielding. Most situations call for some of both. The art is in the proportion. The paradox of detachment. The most counterintuitive teaching of Wu Wei is what it says about desire. The teaching is not stop wanting. The teaching is stop needing. Desire in itself is the engine that gets you out of bed. It is the force that points you in a direction. The mystics did not condemn desire, despite what later misreadings have claimed. What they condemned was the desperate clutching that turns clean desire into a poison. Watch what happens in your life when you want something and cannot stop thinking about it. Watch how that obsession affects your nervous system, the constant grasping, the compulsive checking, the mental rehearsal of every possible outcome, the 10,000 internal calculations about what to do next. Now, watch what happens to your access to that thing while you are in this state. Notice how your nervous system tightens. Notice how your judgment narrows. Notice how the people around you, who can sense the desperation even when you think you are hiding it, instinctively pull back. The desperate vibration, in pure technical terms, repels the thing you most desire. The grasping creates the absence of what you grasp at. The Taoists understood this with terrible clarity. The way you receive what you want is to want it cleanly, and then release the need for it, to act in the direction of it without clutching, to take the steps without turning every step into a referendum on whether the steps are working, to live, in a phrase the later Zen masters refined, as if you have already received it, and the receiving simply has not yet shown up in the calendar. This is what people mean, often without understanding it, when they say, let go and let God. The letting go is not the abandonment of the desire. The letting go is the abandonment of the need, the structural willingness to be all right whether or not the desire materializes. From that interior place, the desire materializes much faster because the field is no longer being repelled by your clutching. This is also why the great teachers in every tradition keep saying that the moment you stop chasing the thing is the moment the thing arrives. They are not being cute. They are reporting an actual mechanism. The chasing is the thing that pushes the thing away. The release is the thing that allows it to come. Effortless action. Lao Tzu's deepest claim about Wu Wei is that the truly skilled actor in any domain, the master archer, the master cook, the master ruler, does not act despite the situation. They act with the situation in a way that makes the action look effortless. Watch a great chef. The vegetables go from board to pan in a single fluid sequence. There is no waste motion. There is no force. The chef looks to the untrained observer as though they are barely working. 20 years of training have refined the body to the point that the work has become play. Watch a great therapist with a difficult patient. They do not push. They do not argue. They sit, ask one question, fall silent, and the patient unburdens themselves of a truth they had been carrying for 30 years. The therapist did not extract the truth. The therapist created the conditions in which the truth could emerge of its own accord. Wu Wei. Watch a great parent with a strong-willed child. They do not crush the will. They do not capitulate. They redirect the will, gently, in the direction it would have wanted to go anyway, if the child had had the wisdom to see it. The child experiences the redirection as their own choice. The parent experiences the redirection as an act of nearly invisible work. Wu Wei. In your own life, the practice is to begin noticing the difference between forcing and flowing. The body knows the difference even when the mind does not. Forcing feels like a tightening of the shoulders, a holding of the breath, a kind of low-level dread under whatever you are doing. Flowing feels open, breathable, even when the work itself is hard. The work in flowing is fully real. It is not laziness, but the work is happening through you rather than being squeezed out of you. Begin asking of any task in front of you, am I forcing this or am I flowing with it? If you are forcing, pause, take 3 breaths, look at the task again. Ask, what is the path of least resistance that still gets the work done? The answer almost always exists. You were, until now, simply unwilling to look for it because you had been culturally trained to mistake exhaustion for virtue. Exhaustion is not virtue. Exhaustion is friction. Friction is the sound of the wrong tool being used. The right tool, applied to the right situation with the right inner state, makes very little noise. This is Wu Wei. This is the art the old man wrote down at the Western Pass before he walked off into the mountains and was, perhaps mercifully, never seen again. Chapter 8. Collapsing Time. Einstein's Forgotten Letter and the Quantum Leap. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. Albert Einstein, Letter to the Family of Michel Besso, 1955. Time is not what you think it is. Every mystic in every tradition. In March of 1955, an old man in Princeton, New Jersey, sat down to write a letter of condolence. His closest lifelong friend, Michel Besso, had just died. The two men had met as students at the Zurich Polytechnic in the 1890s. They had argued physics together for 60 years. Besso, more than any other single person, had been the sounding board for the work that became the theory of relativity. The old man, who was Albert Einstein, wrote a letter to Besso's family. In the middle of that letter, he wrote a sentence that has been quoted ever since and almost never properly understood. He wrote, "Now Besso has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That signifies nothing. For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." A few weeks later, Einstein himself died. He had spent his life proving, with the most rigorous mathematics available to humans, that time is not what we think it is. That past, present, and future are not 3 separate boxes through which a moving present trundles. That all of time, in some sense the human mind cannot quite hold, exists at once. This is not New Age fluff. This is the conclusion of the most respected physicist of the 20th century, written in a private letter to a grieving family in his last weeks of life. He was not posing. He was reporting what he had come to understand. The mystics, of course, had been saying it all along. They had been saying it for thousands of years, using the language available to them. Einstein, in his final years, had reached the same statement from the other side, using the language of differential geometry. They met in the middle on a single sentence. Time is an illusion. This chapter is about what that means in practice, not as poetry, as an operational fact about your life, which has practical consequences for how you live it. The illusion in plain words. Linear time, the time you wear on your wrist, the time that pulls you out of bed in the morning, the time the calendar imposes on you, is real as an experience. You experience yourself as moving through it, second by second, day by day, year by year. You will not stop experiencing this. The illusion is too well constructed, and your nervous system is too thoroughly built around it. What is not real is the assumption that this experience corresponds to the deepest structure of reality. In the deeper structure that physics has been describing, all of space-time exists as a kind of frozen 4-dimensional landscape. Past events are not gone. They are behind you in space-time in the same way that the city you came from this morning is behind you in space. Future events are not yet to come. They are already there in space-time in the same way that the city you are driving toward is already there. Your subjective experience of time is a kind of moving spotlight that illuminates one location after another in this fixed landscape, and you call the moving spotlight now. This is not the only model physicists work with. There are interpretations in which the future is genuinely open and not yet determined. The point is that even in the most conservative reading of relativity, Time is not the simple unidirectional flow your nervous system reports. Something more is going on. The mystics knew it. Einstein, by 1955, was prepared to write it. What does this give you? It gives you the structural permission to stop thinking of yourself as the passive product of your past. The past is not the cause of you. The past is one set of events in space-time to which your present nervous system is referring in order to construct your sense of self. Refer to a different set and a different self assembles. It gives you the structural permission to stop thinking of yourself as someone who must wait for the future. The future state you long for is, in the deeper landscape, already there. Your task is not to construct it from scratch. Your task is to tune into it, to inhabit in the present the inner state of someone for whom that future is the live timeline. The tuning collapses the path between the 2 points. This is what the mystics in different vocabularies have always called the quantum leap. The quantum leap. In quantum mechanics, there's a particular phenomenon, observed in the late 1920s and never since explained away, called the quantum jump. An electron in an atom, when it changes from one energy level to another, does not slide smoothly between the two. It is in one state, then it is in the other. There is no measurable transition. The electron does not travel through the intermediate space. It simply is somewhere it was not, an instant later. This is, in the literal sense of the word, a leap, not metaphor, mechanism. The mystics, who never had the equipment to confirm what was happening at the subatomic level, nevertheless described in their own writings an analogous phenomenon at the macro level. They reported that human lives, under certain conditions, can also leap. A person can be one version of themselves on Tuesday and a substantially different version of themselves on Wednesday, not a person who has been gradually becoming the new version for years. A person whose internal state has, in a single short period, jumped from one configuration to another. The conditions, according to those who have reported it, are unusual but specific. There is, almost always, a precipitating event, a crisis, a dream, a vision, an encounter, a near-death experience, a moment of overwhelming beauty or grief that breaks through the ordinary continuity of the personality. There is, in that breakthrough, a brief window during which the structure of the self is unfrozen. And in that window, if the person can hold a different inner state long enough, usually a few hours, sometimes a few days, the unfrozen self refreezes around the new configuration. The leap is made. A person who walked into the experience as one identity walks out as another. The 10 years of gradual change that the old paradigm would have demanded simply do not occur. The change happens at once. They are different now. You may have already had a small version of this, a trip that changed everything, a book that rewrote you in an afternoon, a grief that, somewhere in the middle of it, also gave you back to yourself in a way the previous you could never have accessed. These were quantum leaps, in miniature. The deeper teaching is that you can, with sufficient inner work, invite the leap rather than waiting for life to force it on you. The invitation. Here is what you do. It is simple. Like most simple things, it is almost impossible. First, choose. Decide with finality who the version of you is on the other side of the leap, not the wishful version, the specific, embodied, named version. Describe them in 3 sentences. The version of you who already lives the life you are working toward, the relationships, the body, the inner peace, the contribution to the world. Picture them with detail. Know what they had for breakfast, know how they greet a friend on the street, know how they hold a difficult feeling when one arises. Second, occupy. As often as you can manage, throughout the day, drop into the felt sense of being that person, not as a fantasy, as an inhabited identity. Walk the way they walk for the duration of a flight of stairs. Have the conversation you are having the way they would have it. Sit at the meal the way they would sit at the meal. The point is not to perform. The point is to let your nervous system rehearse the new configuration. Third, do not negotiate with the old self. The old self will protest. The old self will run 1,000 internal scripts about why this is silly, why you are not ready, why the new version is aspirational, and the old version is realistic. Do not engage. The old self is a piece of software running on autopilot. It is not you. Let it talk. Continue inhabiting the new configuration anyway. Fourth, expect the bridge. Within a few weeks of consistent practice, sometimes within days, circumstances will begin to rearrange themselves to support the new configuration. People will appear, opportunities will appear, old patterns will fall away. This is not coincidence. This is the field, in its slow, accurate way, beginning to mirror your new dominant frequency. The mirror takes some time to turn, but turn it does. Fifth, let the old life end its life. As you settle more deeply into the new configuration, parts of the old life will fall away. Friendships will quietly end. Habits will lose their pull. Foods you used to crave will begin to taste wrong. Conversations that used to interest you will begin to bore you. This is correct. The old life is dissolving because it can no longer be sustained by your new internal state. Let it dissolve. Mourn what needs mourning. Do not at any cost restart the old life out of nostalgia. You will lose the leap. This is the protocol. Adepts in every tradition have used some version of it. It is now available to you. Time compression. There is one final practical consequence of the new view of time, and it is the consequence that frightens most students when they first encounter it. If time is a stubbornly persistent illusion, and if all of space-time exists at once, then the things you have been told would take years to accomplish are in fact already accomplished somewhere on the landscape. The personal transformation you have been told would take a decade is sitting, available, on a nearby fold of space-time. The financial freedom you have been told would take 20 years. Of disciplined work is sitting, available, on another fold. The deep relationship you have been told you have to wait for is, in the same sense, already real. The work, in the new model, is not to manufacture these things from scratch. The work is to collapse the path between your current location in space-time and the location at which they exist. The collapse is done with consciousness, with identity, with the held inner state of the person on the other side, not with effort, in the old sense, with occupation of the new self. This is why, in the lives of certain people, change appears to happen in lurches rather than gradients. Years of nothing. Then 6 months in which everything in the life rearranges itself, and the person who emerges is unrecognizable to the one who began. The years of nothing were not wasted. They were the slow accumulation of inner readiness. The 6 months were the leap. You may be at the threshold of one of those 6-month windows right now. The fact that this book reached you with these specific chapters in this specific season of your life is evidence that you are. Take the leap seriously. Make the choice. Inhabit the new self. Do not waste the window. The next 10 years of your life can take 3 months. The mystics knew it. Einstein, in his last weeks, was prepared to write it. You do not have to wait the long way through. Time is not what you have been told it is. Chapter 9. The Guardian of the Threshold. The Shadow's Last Stand. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Paraphrased from Joseph Campbell, after Jung. You have done the work. You have understood the law of resonance. You have begun to read the mirror. You have learned to listen for synchronicity. You have started to feel the difference between forcing and flowing. You have inhabited in your imagination a new self. You have signed in your inner life a new contract. And then, just as you approach the threshold of actually becoming this new person, you will encounter something you did not expect. You will sabotage yourself. You will, on the eve of your breakthrough, pick a fight with the partner who has been supporting you. You will, the morning of the important meeting, oversleep. You will, after months of clean eating, binge an entire pizza at 11 p.m. You will, just as the new business is taking off, mysteriously fail to send the email that would have closed the deal. You will, just as the new relationship deepens, discover something to be offended by and pull back. This is not weakness of character. This is not lack of discipline. This is not a sign that you are not actually serious. This is the appearance of an old, well-mapped figure who shows up at exactly this point in every transformation, in every spiritual tradition, under different names. The Christians called it the temptation in the wilderness. The Tibetans called it Mara. Joseph Campbell, in his comparative work on world myth, called it the threshold guardian. Carl Jung gave it a clinical name in the deepest examination it has ever received. He called it the shadow. This chapter is about what the shadow is, why it is doing this, and how to walk past it without becoming its prisoner. What the shadow is. Carl Jung, working in the early decades of the 20th century, observed that the human personality is not a single coherent thing. The personality is a construction built over the years of childhood, in which the parts of the self deemed acceptable by the family and society are permitted into the conscious self-image, and the parts deemed unacceptable are exiled from awareness. The exiled parts do not, however, cease to exist. They are simply pushed below the threshold of consciousness, where they collect in shadow into a kind of secondary personality. This shadow personality contains all the qualities you have been told, since childhood, were not permitted in you. Your anger, if anger was forbidden in your family. Your sensuality, if sensuality was forbidden. Your ambition, your weakness, your strength, your tenderness, your wildness, whatever was not permitted, it lives down there. The shadow does not hate you. The shadow is not the enemy. The shadow is, in its peculiar way, the guardian of every part of you that the surface personality could not accommodate. It is doing exactly the job it was given. It is keeping the contraband material out of conscious view, so the surface personality can continue functioning in the family and society that would not have accepted the whole self. The problem is that the shadow does not only keep things out of view, it also acts. It acts from below, through the cracks in the surface personality, in moments when the conscious self is tired, distracted, or undefended. It acts in the slip of the tongue. It acts in the impulse that comes from nowhere. It acts in the attraction to the wrong person and the repulsion from the right one. It acts, especially, in the self-sabotage at the threshold of growth. Here is why. The new self you are becoming does not need the old shadow material to be exiled. The new self has a wider container. The new self can hold the anger, the sensuality, the ambition, the tenderness, all in conscious awareness in their integrated form. As you approach the new self, the shadow senses its impending obsolescence. It senses correctly that the new configuration will not need it in its current role. And so it makes its last stand. It rises up just before the threshold and tries to abort the transformation. The mechanism is not malice. The mechanism is self-preservation. The shadow has been doing the only job it knows for 30 years, and it does not understand that the new arrangement will integrate it rather than abolish it. It panics, it fights, it produces in your conscious life the strange sabotage that arrives at the worst possible moment. This is the threshold guardian. He has been at every door you have ever crossed. He will be at every door you ever will cross. He is not your enemy. He is the part of you that is afraid you are about to leave him behind. The three forms of the shadow at the threshold. The shadow can take 1,000 forms, but at the threshold of growth, it tends in most lives to wear three particular costumes. Recognize them, and you have already half defeated them. The first form is the inner critic. The voice in your head that, on the morning of the important meeting, says, "Who do you think you are? You are not the kind of person who succeeds at things like this. You have been pretending. They are about to find out." This voice is not an honest assessment. It is the shadow speaking through the most rational-sounding channel it can find. It uses the language of realism, of humility, of due diligence. It is none of those things. It is fear of the new self, dressed up in respectable clothing. The response is not to argue with this voice. Arguing makes it stronger. The response is to recognize it as a costume, thank it for trying to keep you safe, and proceed anyway. I see you. I know what you are doing. I'm going to do this thing whether you approve or not. The voice rarely has a second move when it is recognized. Its only weapon was that you mistook it for reality. The second form is mysterious exhaustion. You have been energized for weeks. You're inside the work. Your sleep is clean, your eating is good, your spirit is high. Then, on the morning of the day when something important is going to happen, you wake up unaccountably wrecked. Your body feels like lead. You consider, seriously, calling in sick. You tell yourself you are listening to your body. You are not. You are being lied to by the threshold guardian who has decided that exhaustion is the most plausible-sounding excuse to abort the day. The response, again, is not to argue, but to recognize and proceed. Move slowly. Drink water. Eat lightly. But proceed. By the time you arrive at the moment that mattered, the exhaustion will have mysteriously lifted. It was never about energy. It was about the guardian using the body as a delay tactic. The third form is sudden offense. 2 days before the breakthrough, you discover that someone in your life has done something offensive, or that the institution you are about to engage with has a problem you cannot abide, or that the path you are on is not as pure as you thought. You become indignant. You consider walking away. You feel righteous. You have in your mind very good reasons for stepping off the path. The vast majority of the time, this offense is a manufactured reason. The shadow has scanned the landscape for any plausible grievance and amplified it until it justifies retreat. The grievance may even be real, but it is not on its own sufficient grounds for what you are about to do with it. You are using a small grievance to justify a large escape. The escape is from the threshold, not from the grievance. The response is to ask calmly, if I had not been about to make a major change in my life, would I have considered this serious enough to walk away over? The honest answer is almost always no. Recognize the costume. Proceed. The integration. You do not defeat the shadow by fighting it. The shadow cannot be killed. Every attempt to kill it makes it stronger, because the killing requires more material to be exiled, which feeds the shadow rather than starving it. This is the great error of the moralist, who's been trying for 2,000 years to suppress the dark material and has produced by the suppression a culture in which the dark material erupts in increasingly destructive collective forms. The way to handle the shadow is the way Jung described, and the deepest spiritual traditions have always taught. You integrate it. You bring the exiled material into conscious awareness. You acknowledge its existence. You stop pretending you do not have it. You take responsibility for it. And, in the act of acknowledgement, you reclaim the energy that was being spent on exile. This is the meaning in the East of the great enigmatic statement, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." The treasure is not in spite of the dark cave. The treasure is in the dark cave. The energy you have been spending on keeping the shadow contained is the energy that, once reclaimed, becomes available for everything else. The man who has been suppressing his anger for 30 years does not become harmless when he stops suppressing it. He becomes powerful. The energy that was bound up in the suppression is now free for use in conscious form, where appropriate. The woman who has been suppressing her ambition does not become greedy when she stops suppressing it. She becomes effective. The integration produces, in every case, more capacity than the suppression ever allowed. Pay attention, then, to what irritates you most about other people. The qualities in others that produce in you a strong, almost involuntary disgust are very often qualities you have exiled in yourself. The person whose arrogance you cannot stand may be arrogant. They are also, almost certainly, holding up a mirror to a part of yourself that you have not been permitted to express. The person whose laziness you cannot abide may be lazy. They are also showing you the rest you have not allowed yourself. Watch your reactions for a week with this lens. The world has been showing you your shadow for years. You have only just begun to look. Chapter 10. The Inner Compass. The quiet voice beneath the noise. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift, attributed to Albert Einstein. The voice you hear is not your own. The voice you are has not yet spoken. Anonymous in the Sufi tradition, there is, inside every human being who has ever lived, a small, steady voice that knows things the rational mind has no access to. The voice is older than your reasoning. It is calmer than your emotion. It does not argue. It does not insist. It simply knows. You have heard it before. You heard it the time you took a different route home for no reason and later discovered there had been an accident on the usual one. You heard it the time you were about to sign the contract and a quiet inner pull told you, with no supporting argument, not this one. You heard it the time you turned around at the airport gate, missed a flight, and were, weeks later, very glad you had. You heard it the time you walked into a room and knew, before a single word was spoken, that this was the person you would marry. The voice is intuition. Every traditional culture knew about it. Every traditional culture trained children to respect it. Modern life, with its relentless prioritization of the analytical mind, has trained you, since school, to ignore it. You have been ignoring it for so long that, for many of you, it has gone almost silent. It has not gone away. The voice cannot go away. It is what you actually are beneath the personality. But it has become so faint, drowned by so many years of mental noise that you can barely hear it anymore. This chapter is about how to turn the volume back up, what intuition is and what it is not. Intuition is not wishful thinking. Intuition is not what you want to be true. Intuition is not the voice in your head that is loudest or most insistent or most charged with emotion. Intuition is, almost invariably, quiet. It speaks once. It does not repeat itself. It does not argue with you. It tells you what it knows, and then, if you ignore it, it falls silent. It will speak again on the next decision, but it will not lobby you on this one. The lobbying is the rational mind. The lobbying is the ego. The lobbying is the fear disguised as prudence. None of these are intuition. The signature of intuition is peace. Even when it tells you something difficult, leave this job, end this relationship, say the thing that will cost you, the underlying tone of the message is calm. The message arrives as recognition, not as panic. Of course, I have known this for some time. There it is, said. Compare this to the signature of fear. Fear arrives loud, urgent, charged. Fear demands an immediate decision. Fear constructs elaborate worst-case scenarios and runs them in vivid detail. Fear repeats itself 10 times an hour in different costumes. Fear is exhausting. Intuition is restful. If you are uncertain whether a particular inner message is intuition or fear, the discrimination is usually possible by simply observing the message's tone and persistence. The persistent, repetitive, urgent message is fear. The single, calm, almost incidental message is intuition. The body knows the difference even when the mind does not. The channels of the inner knowing. Intuition does not arrive only through the mind. It uses every channel available to it, and different people are wired to receive most strongly through different channels. Knowing your dominant channel is half the work of beginning to listen well. The body channel. Some people receive intuitive information primarily as a sensation in the body. A tightness in the chest when something is wrong. A warmth in the solar plexus when something is right. A nausea when a particular person speaks. A relaxation when a particular path is named. These people are kinesthetic intuitives. Their guidance arrives through the soma before the mind has had time to process. If this is you, your work is to slow down and listen to the body's report before letting the mind override it. The body is rarely wrong. The mind, talking over the body, is wrong constantly. The dream channel. Some people receive intuitive information primarily through dreams. A persistent dream that returns over weeks. A vivid dream the night before a decision. A dream in which a deceased relative or unknown figure delivers a clear message. These people are oniric intuitives, keeping a notebook by the bed and recording dreams the moment you wake before the mind has had time to dismiss them is the central practice for this channel. The unconscious is delivering material. The least you can do is read it. The image channel. Some people receive intuitive information as sudden mental images. The face of a person you have not thought of in years, appearing for no reason, often within hours of that person reaching out to you. A spontaneous picture of a place you have not visited, often before you are about to visit it. A symbolic image, a closing door, an opening road, a turning wheel, that lands in the mind without invitation. These people are visual intuitives, treating the spontaneous mental image as a signal worth recording rather than a distraction to be brushed away is the practice for this channel. The auditory channel. Some people receive intuitive information as a quiet inner sentence, nearly always brief, nearly always declarative. Take the other road. Call her now. Don't sign. These people are auditory intuitives. They are the rarest type and the most often dismissed by their own rational minds, because the inner sentence sounds, to the surface mind, like just another thought. The discrimination is the quality of the sentence, short, calm, declarative, and not arguing for itself. The surface mind's thoughts argue. The inner sentence does not. Most people use a primary channel and one or two secondary ones. Spend a few weeks paying attention. Notice which channel your guidance has been arriving through all this time while you ignored it. The information will be much clearer once you know what frequency you are tuned to. Why the voice has gone quiet. If the inner voice has been almost silent for you, do not be discouraged. There is a reason, and the reason is reversible. The voice has gone quiet for one of three reasons, often all three together. The first reason is noise. The modern nervous system is bathed every waking minute in a quantity of audio, visual, and informational stimulation that no human nervous system before the year 2000 had ever encountered. The voice is quiet. It cannot compete with the volume. To begin hearing it again, you have to manufacture, deliberately, periods of silence in your day. Not productive silence, not silence with a podcast, actual silence with no input in which the inner voice can finally get a word in. 20 minutes a day, with no phone, no music, no agenda, will begin to restore the channel within weeks. The second reason is override. You have, possibly for years, been receiving guidance from the voice and overriding it with the rational mind. The rational mind has very good arguments in any given case for why the inner voice should be ignored. The voice, after enough overrides, simply stops bothering. They never listen. Why am I bothering? It does not go away. It just becomes much fainter. The work here is to begin small. The next time the inner voice gives you a small instruction, take the other route, eat the other meal, call the friend now, follow it without negotiating. Each time you follow it on a small thing, the voice gets a little louder for the next instruction. Trust is rebuilt incrementally. Within a few months on the small things, the voice will be clearly audible again. The third reason is fear. There is, in many people, a sub-rational fear of what the inner voice might say. They sense, without quite admitting it, that if they really listened, the voice would tell them to leave the job, end the relationship, change the city, write the book, confront the parent, to do, in short, the very thing they have been avoiding for years. So they keep the voice quiet on purpose. They mistake the suppression for prudence. If this is you, the question to sit with is direct. What am I afraid the voice is going to ask me to do? The honest answer is almost always already known, in the back of the mind, before the question is finished. Bring it forward. Look at it. The voice is not going to ask you to do anything you cannot survive. The voice is going to ask you to do exactly what your soul came here to do. The fear is not of the voice. The fear is of your own life finally beginning. The practical reawakening. If you would like, in this week, to begin reawakening the inner compass, the practice is simple. Each morning, before you reach for your phone, sit upright in bed for 90 seconds. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths. Then ask silently, what do I most need to know today? Listen for 30 seconds. Do not strain. Do not search. Whatever arises, a sentence, an image, a feeling, sometimes nothing, note it. Then begin the day. Each evening before sleep, review the day. Notice the moments when you received an inner prompting and followed it. Notice the moments when you received one and overrode it. Do not judge yourself. Just notice. After a few weeks of this, you will begin to see with embarrassing clarity how often the voice has been speaking. You will begin to see also how the days in which you followed it tended to flow, and the days in which you overrode it tended to grind. The compass is yours. It has always been yours. You only need to clean off the rust and remember how to read it. Chapter 11. Your Dharma, the reason you were born. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Attributed to Carl Jung. Better to do your own Dharma badly than another's well. Bhagavad Gita 3.35. There is a question that sooner or later every awakening soul has to confront. The question is the loud, terrifying, liberating one that the surface life is engineered to keep you from asking. The question goes like this: why am I alive? Not why are humans in general alive? Not why is there something rather than nothing, the personal version. Why am I, this particular consciousness, in this particular body, alive on this particular planet at this particular slice of cosmic time? The conventional culture has an answer for you. The answer is, there is no particular reason. You are an accident of biology. You are here because your parents had sex and your nervous system happened to take this configuration. Make the most of the accident. Find meaning where you can. Try to be reasonably happy and reasonably useful, and then die. This is a coherent answer. It is also, when one looks closely, almost certainly wrong, and almost no one who has lived a deeply examined inner life has ever been able to maintain it as their final word. The traditional cultures, almost without exception, gave a different answer. They said, every soul comes to this life carrying a particular contribution to make, a particular function to perform, a particular gift to offer that no other soul could offer in exactly the same way. The Sanskrit word for this is dharma. The Greek word is something close to telos. The medieval Christians called it vocation. The mystics, across traditions, called it the soul's purpose. Whatever you call it, the proposition is that you, specifically, were born for something. You came in carrying a particular note, a particular shape, a particular contribution to the larger pattern. The work of a properly lived life is to discover what that note is and to play it. This chapter is about how to find yours, what Dharma is not. Dharma is not the same as your job, although it sometimes coincides. Many people have a Dharma that does not pay them anything. Many people pay the bills with one occupation and live their Dharma in the evenings and the weekends. Some, very fortunate, have arranged their lives so that the two are the same. Dharma is not the same as what you are good at. You may be quite skilled at things that are not your Dharma and quite clumsy at things that are. The world is full of people doing brilliantly the work that is not theirs to do. They are admired, decorated, well paid, and quietly miserable. Dharma is not the same as what you enjoy. There is some overlap, but the relationship is not reliable. Some dharmas are pleasant, some are difficult, some involve great joy, some involve extended periods of grief. The signature of dharma is not pleasure. The signature is necessity. The felt sense that you cannot, without violating something at your core, not do this thing. Dharma is not the same as making your parents proud, or proving the doubters wrong, or fulfilling the dreams of someone who came before you and could not finish them. Many of these motivations look, from a distance, like Dharma. They are not. They are someone else's project running on your nervous system. You can spend an entire life completing someone else's project and arrive at the end with the unsettling feeling that you have not yet begun your own. The signature of Dharma. So how do you know yours when you see it? There are a few signatures. They appear, in different combinations, in nearly every Dharma any tradition has documented. The first signature is the early signal. Most people, if they look back honestly, can identify the activity that, in childhood, made time disappear. The thing they would do for hours without noticing. The thing the adults often tried to drag them away from because it was bedtime. The thing they kept returning to long after they had stopped being made to. This activity, or something close to it, is almost always pointing at the Dharma. The form may have to evolve. The 7-year-old who lost themselves for hours in stories may not become a novelist. They may become a screenwriter, a therapist, a priest, a teacher. But the underlying gesture, losing themselves in the architecture of meaning, is the Dharma making its first appearance. The second signature is the recurring pull. Whatever your Dharma is, you cannot in practice stay away from it for very long. You can avoid it for a season. You can avoid it for years. It will return, It will return as a recurring question in your private journal. It will return as a half-formed plan you keep almost beginning. It will return as a wistful sentence you say to yourself in the shower, "One day I'll really do that." The recurrence is data. The thing that keeps coming back, refusing to be permanently dismissed, is almost always the thing. The third signature is the cost. Dharma costs something. It almost always costs something. The cost is, very often, the comfortable life that the small self had constructed in the absence of the Dharma. To answer the call usually involves leaving something safe and beginning something exposed. If the path you are calling your Dharma is purely comfortable, purely safe, purely unrisky, it may be a hobby rather than a Dharma. The Dharma asks you to grow. Growth is, by structure, uncomfortable. The fourth signature is the resonance with strangers. When you finally begin doing your Dharma, even badly, even in early forms, certain strangers will react to it in a way that surprises you. They will say things like, "Something about what you said landed with me in a way I cannot explain." They will weep at the simple thing you did, and you will feel awkward and not understand why your simple thing produced such an outsized response. The reason is that your Dharma is not actually for you. It is through you. It is for the people whose souls were waiting for the particular note your nervous system was built to play. Their reactions are evidence that the note is reaching the ears that were tuned to receive it. The fifth signature is the lifelong continuity. Whatever your Dharma is, it is unlikely to change radically across the lifetime. The forms will change, the vehicles will change, the income from it may change, the underlying gesture will not. The 7-year-old's gesture and the 70-year-old's gesture will, on close inspection, turn out to be the same. The Dharma is, in this sense, the invariant of the life. It is what is left when everything else is taken away. Beginning wherever you are. If, reading this chapter, you have a clear sense of what your Dharma is, the only question is whether you will, today, take one concrete step toward serving it. Not the whole path, not a 5-year plan. One step. Today. The step is almost always smaller than you thought. If, reading this chapter, you do not have a clear sense, do not panic. The Dharma is not always obvious. Sometimes it has been hiding under decades of someone else's project. Sometimes it is not yet fully emerged because the conditions of the life have not yet allowed it. Sometimes it is taking a form you have not yet recognized as a Dharma at all. In either case, the same practice applies. You begin in small ways to follow what makes you most alive, not what makes you happy in a shallow sense, what makes you most real. What, when you do it, produces in you the feeling that you are at last doing what you came here for. Pay attention to this signal across many situations, over months. The pattern will emerge. It almost always emerges. And then, when the pattern is clear, you take the first step, then the second, then the next. The Dharma reveals itself as you walk it. You do not need the entire path mapped before you begin. You need only the next step. You came here for a reason. You knew it once, before the school system and the social system and the family system covered it over. You've been forgetting it for years, but only on the surface. Underneath, you have always known. This book has been, in part, a long invitation to remember. The remembering is the work of the rest of your life. Epilogue. The throne is yours. We have come a long way together. You opened these pages with a small, almost embarrassed hope that the title might mean what it said. That the book had, in some sense you could not yet articulate, found you on purpose. You were correct. It had. You learned that the world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. The frequency you broadcast is the frequency the world responds to in its slow, accurate, faithful way. The mirror is not malicious. The mirror is not random. The mirror is exact. You learned that what looks like coincidence is, on close examination, almost never coincidence. The numbers, the animals, the songs, the strangers, the universe has been speaking to you in its own language for years, in a continuous broadcast that you had been taught not to receive. You have begun in this season to receive again. You learned that imagination is not the place where the unreal lives. Imagination is the operative power. The scenes you sustain inwardly, with feeling and persistence, the world will, in time, conform itself to. You learned that your speech is not free. Each sentence is a small spell. You have been casting spells on yourself for decades, almost always without intending to. You are now in a position to cast them on purpose. You learned that the people in your life are not a random collection of characters. Each of them, including the difficult ones, was placed in your story and you in theirs by an agreement made before either of you arrived. The web of Indra is real. The red thread is real. You have not been alone for a single moment of your life. You learned that effort, in the form you have been using it, is the wrong tool for almost everything that matters. The way of water defeats the wall. The way of force never could. Wu Wei is not laziness. Wu Wei is the right tool used at the right time without unnecessary friction. You learned that time is not what you have been told. The future you long for is not a place you must travel to over decades. It is a configuration available in space-time, right now, accessible through the act of inhabiting the inner state of the person on the other side. Quantum leaps are not metaphor, they are protocol. You learned that the threshold guardian, the inner voice of doubt, the strange exhaustion, the sudden offense, is not the enemy. He is the part of you that is afraid of being left behind. You can recognize his costumes and walk past him without becoming his prisoner. You learned that the inner compass has been there all along. Its volume can be turned back up. Within a few weeks of clean practice, you will hear, again, the small, steady voice that knows things your reasoning cannot reach. You learned that you are here for a reason. Not because some external authority assigned the reason to you, because your own soul, before it took this body, accepted a particular contribution to make, and the rest of your life is the field on which you discover and offer that contribution. This is the map. It is now in your hands. The rest is yours to walk. There will be days when none of this seems to apply. Days when the world looks like a flat mechanical place again, and the laws of resonance feel like something you read about in a book once. This is normal. It is not a failure. It is the brief return of the old configuration, attempting one of its final visits before fading. Be patient with it. Do not argue with it. Continue practicing. There will be days when, instead, the laws feel almost embarrassingly obvious. The synchronicities will pile up. The right person will appear, 3 days in a row in 3 different forms. The thing you needed will arrive before you finished asking for it. The morning light will look for a few minutes like the inside of something holy. These days are not the exception. They are the new baseline you are walking toward. They will become more common. They will eventually become most. You will not be the same in 5 years. You will not be the same in 5 months. The version of yourself who opened this book is, in a real sense, already gone. The version who is closing it is the new one, blinking, looking around at a world that will never again be quite the same shape. A final word. You have, for most of your life, been waiting for someone to come and tell you that you were the real one, the chosen, the marked, the one for whom the universe had a particular plan. You can stop waiting. No one is coming to tell you. The telling, in fact, has already happened, repeatedly, in every voice the universe could find. It told you in the synchronicities you noticed. It told you in the recurring dream. It told you in the sentence that on this page or another leapt out and grabbed you by the throat. It told you when this title found you, and you, for once, did not scroll past. You are the real one. Not because you are special above others, because every conscious being is the real one, in the sense that each of us is a particular note in the great chord of consciousness, and the chord requires each particular note to remain whole. You are not above. You are not below. You are here, irreplaceable, signed in by your own soul before you were born, with a contribution to make that the chord cannot complete without you. The throne is not in some external palace, waiting for permission to be claimed. The throne is the one you have been standing next to your entire life, refusing to sit on, because no one ever told you the throne was yours. It is. Sit. The world has been waiting for you. You did not find this book found you. And the only question left is what you are going to do now with the news. The page is closing. The work is beginning. Walk well. 12 practices for the awakening life. The principles in this book are useless without practice. The mind that only understands the law of resonance changes nothing. The body that practices the law for 90 days changes everything. What follows are 12 practices drawn from across the chapters that you can begin in your real life this week. None of them require special equipment. None of them require time you do not have. All of them work if practiced consistently. You do not need to do all 12. Pick 3. Stay with them for a season. Add more when the first 3 are stable. 1. The morning frequency. Before your feet touch the floor, decide your dominant frequency for the day. Not a goal, a posture. Inhabit for 90 seconds the body of the person whose day is going to go beautifully. Notice how that person breathes. Then begin the day from inside that body. 2. The spoken curse audit. Carry a small notebook for 3 days. Write down every negative sentence you complete about yourself out loud. Do not edit, do not censor. By the end of 3 days, the pattern will have been made visible to you. From the 4th day forward, interrupt the curses. You do not have to replace them with affirmations yet. Simply refuse to finish them. 3. The 5-minute silence. Once a day, sit for 5 minutes in actual silence. No phone, no podcast, no music, no agenda. Eyes open or closed, mind allowed to wander. The point is not to meditate. The point is to give the inner voice 5 minutes a day in which it can finally get a word in. 4. The inhabit the end scene. Before sleep, replay one short scene, 3 minutes long, no longer, that would be true only if your wish were already granted. Vivid sensory detail, the smell of the morning coffee, the texture of the sheet, the exact small phrase a friend says to you 2 months from now after the thing has come to pass. Drift to sleep with that scene as your last conscious state. 5. The daily revision. Before sleep, choose one moment from the day that did not unfold the way you would have wanted. Reimagine it, with detail, the way you would have wanted it to go. Allow your nervous system to install the revised version as the operative memory. Then, sleep. 6. The 3-sign listening. Each day, ask the universe on rising, what do I most need to know today? Then, throughout the day, watch for the rule of 3. The first time something appears, note it. The second time, note it again. The third time, recognize the sign and act on it. Do not interpret single events. Wait for the pattern. 7. The body's yes and no. Before any decision, even small ones, pause. Place your hand on your chest. Notice the body's report. Tightening, contraction, withdrawal. That is no. Opening, warmth, lightness. That is yes. Follow the body for 1 week, even on small choices. Notice the difference in how the week goes. 8. The mirror practice. Once each evening, stand in front of a mirror for 60 seconds. Make eye contact with the person you see. Say, out loud, one true sentence about who you are becoming, not who you wish you were. Who you are becoming in the active sense. I am becoming a person who tells the truth. I am becoming someone whose life serves something larger than itself. Notice what arises in the body when you say it. 9. The speaking well discipline. For 7 days, every time the name of a person you have grievance with arises in conversation, name something true and good about them in the same breath. He was difficult, and he taught me how to fix anything mechanical. This is not flattery. It is a refusal to let the wound write your tongue. 10. The phone-free threshold. For the first 30 minutes after waking and the last 30 minutes before sleep, no phone, no screens. The first and last half hour of the day are when the unconscious is most permeable. What you put into those windows installs itself with a depth that the daytime hours cannot match. Use them on purpose. 11. The threshold guardian recognition. When you notice yourself, at the eve of an important moment, reaching for a fight, an exhaustion, or a sudden offense, pause. Name what is happening. This is the threshold guardian. He's afraid I'm about to leave him behind. I see you. I'm going to do this thing anyway. Proceed without negotiating. 12. The weekly inventory. Once a week on the same day, ask 3 questions. What did I notice this week that I would have missed a year ago? Where did I follow the inner voice and where did I override it? What is the next small step toward what I came here to do? Write the answers. Read the previous week's answers. Track the trajectory. 12 practices, pick 3, begin tonight. The map is in your hands. The walking is up to you. And may the life waiting for you be greater, more joyful, and more fulfilling than the one you leave behind. Manifesting Cat. Thank you for listening. If this book found you today, maybe it was meant to. Before you go, please like this video and subscribe for more audiobooks, reflections, and manifestation teachings. It helps this message reach the next person who needs it. To purchase the full book, click the link in the video description below. The book is called If This Book Found You. It's for a reason. A field manual for the soul that just woke up. I also have a free gift for you. You can download The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. This timeless classic has inspired readers for more than a century, and it continues to shape modern ideas about wealth, mindset, and manifestation. To get your free copy, go to manifestingcat.com/science. The link is also in the description below. Thank you again for listening, and remember, you did not find this by accident. This book found you. The field manual is in your hands. The work begins now.